"Excuse me, but what you just said is a trap," Maya Williams said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room like a sharp knife. The boardroom fell into silence, every person in the room frozen in disbelief. Sheikh Karim al-Fahad, a man whose wealth and influence spanned continents, was caught off guard. He had been speaking in Arabic, subtly dismissing Maya as nothing more than a maid, a mere servant who couldn't possibly understand his words. But Maya, standing with perfect posture at the edge of the room, wasn't just any maid. She was a woman of intelligence, of grit, and she was not about to be belittled. With her eyes locked on the Sheikh's, Maya continued, "If you sign this contract, your company will lose everything. The liability clause you're overlooking isn't just a loophole, it's a trap that will ruin you." The room remained still, everyone in it trying to process the scene unfolding before them. Maya had been hired as a cleaner, hired to wipe down glass doors and scrub floors, but the truth was, she had a mind far sharper than anyone in that room could have imagined. Her mind was the key to unraveling the deal that Sheikh Karim and his executives had been eagerly preparing to seal. The Sheikh blinked, momentarily unsure of how to respond. He'd expected compliance, submission, perhaps even fear, but certainly not defiance. His arrogance faltered for a brief second, and that was all Maya needed. She straightened, stepping forward with quiet confidence, her gaze unwavering. "You didn't think a maid could understand business, did you?" Maya's words rang out across the room, and the stunned silence deepened. No one dared to speak. Sheikh Karim's sharp eyes narrowed. He opened his mouth, perhaps to dismiss her, but the words never came. Instead, he looked down at the contract in front of him, his expression turning from dismissive to contemplative. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, but her voice remained steady. "I worked in finance before I came here," she said, her words sharp as a scalpel. "I know exactly what's at stake. This contract will not protect your company. It will destroy it. If you don't address this now, you'll be left with nothing." The room was still, every person in it trying to come to terms with what Maya had just said. The Sheikh, a man who had assumed he could silence anyone with his wealth and power, was now on the back foot. He turned to his legal team, a team of high-powered lawyers who had been confident in their work just moments before. One of them hesitated, then reached for the contract, scanning it quickly. The color drained from his face as he realized Maya was right. There it was, buried in the fine print, the clause that would leave Sheikh Karim and his company vulnerable. The Sheikh looked back at Maya, his usual arrogance gone. For the first time, he seemed unsure of himself. "How did you know?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Maya simply shrugged. "I've read contracts like this before. You thought you could pull one over on everyone in this room, but you forgot one thing. People like me, we don't just clean the floors. We see everything." The silence that followed felt heavy, almost suffocating. Karim's face flushed, his pride taking a blow he wasn't prepared for. He glanced at his team, but no one spoke. It was clear, Maya had just won. Sheikh Karim straightened in his chair, clearly defeated, and without a word, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving everyone else to process what had just happened. Maya stood there for a moment longer, her back straight, her shoulders squared. She hadn't just spoken up, she had completely changed the game. The room would never look at her the same way again. "I should have expected it." That was the thought running through Maya's mind as she stood alone in the empty hallway outside the boardroom. She could still feel the tension in the air, the weight of the moment hanging like a thick fog. Sheikh Karim had left, his pride shattered, but Maya knew this wasn't over. She had made her point, but she also knew she'd just begun to change the way they saw her. She'd taken the first step in gaining the respect she deserved, and though she wasn't certain where this would lead, she knew there was no turning back. As the elevator doors opened, she stepped inside and hit the button for the staff floor. The ding of the elevator as it descended seemed louder than usual, a reminder that she was about to return to the life she had known for so long. The cleaning crew, the backrooms, the ignored tasks. For a moment, She felt that strange mix of pride and unease. She had just dismantled a multi-million-dollar deal with a few well-placed words, but she was still just a maid in their eyes. She was still the one who cleaned the floors. The elevator came to a halt, and the doors opened to the staff floor. Maya stepped out and walked towards the break room, but as she passed by the offices, she caught sight of the hotel's general manager, Veronica Ellison. Veronica, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair, was standing in the hallway, looking at her with an unreadable expression. "Maya," she said, her voice calm but with an edge of curiosity. Maya stopped in her tracks, unsure of what to expect. "Yes, ma'am?" she asked. Veronica glanced around, making sure no one else was nearby before she motioned for Maya to follow her into her office. With a quiet nod, Maya walked into the office, where Veronica closed the door behind them. The room was sleek and minimalist, with large windows that looked out over the city. The contrast between this office and the staff room was stark, almost surreal. Veronica sat behind her desk, her fingers tapping lightly on the polished wood. "I saw what happened in there," she said finally. "You handled yourself well. But I'm curious, how did you know so much about contracts like that?" Maya hesitated for a moment. She hadn't expected anyone to acknowledge what had happened, let alone ask about it. "I used to work in finance," Maya replied, her voice steady. "Before I came here, I worked for an investment firm." Veronica raised an eyebrow. "And you chose to leave that life to work here?" Maya nodded slowly. "My mother got sick. I needed to take care of her. But when she passed away, it was hard to get back into the field. People saw the gap in my resume, and they didn't look past it. They didn't see my degree. They saw the color of my skin, and that was enough to decide I wasn't qualified." Veronica sat back in her chair, processing the words. She didn't speak for a moment, and Maya wondered if she had said too much. "It's a shame," Veronica said quietly. "A waste of talent." Maya looked at her, unsure of where this conversation was going. "I've seen it happen before," Veronica continued, her tone softer now. "People like you, people with real talent, who are overlooked because of something they can't control. It's a systemic problem." Maya didn't know how to respond. She had never expected someone like Veronica to understand, let alone speak so openly about it. "I'm not here to offer you a way out of your job, Maya," Veronica said, leaning forward slightly. "But I want to make one thing clear. What you did in that room, that takes guts. And that's the kind of courage we need more of, in here and out there. If you ever want a way back into finance or any other field, you don't need to be hidden in the shadows anymore. I'll make sure people see you for who you really are." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected this kind of support. She had always felt invisible, always felt like she was just another face in the crowd, but here was someone powerful, telling her that she was more than just the maid. Veronica stood up, walked around her desk, and handed Maya a business card. "Call me if you ever need anything," she said. "I don't forget talent, Maya. Don't let anyone make you forget who you are." Maya took the card, her hand trembling slightly. She had come to this hotel to find a job, to make ends meet, but now it seemed like she was standing on the precipice of something much bigger. As she left Veronica's office, the weight in her chest had lifted, just a little. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she had options. She was no longer just the maid in the background. She was someone to be reckoned with. I was no longer invisible. That thought echoed in Maya's mind as she stepped out of the building into the cool evening air. The weight of the past few hours seemed to hang in the air around her, but something had changed. The conversation with Veronica, the offer of a future beyond scrubbing floors and cleaning glass, was a reminder of what she had always known deep down. She was more than her job. She was capable of so much more. As she walked down the quiet city street, Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. Pulling it out, she saw a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat as she read it. "This is Veronica. I need you to come in tomorrow morning. There's something I want you to look at." Her fingers tightened around the phone. This wasn't just a call to clean another office. This was something else. Something bigger. Maya hadn't expected to hear from Veronica again, let alone be called in for something important. She had figured that what had happened earlier would be brushed under the rug, just another fleeting moment in a world that never took people like her seriously. But here she was, getting a chance to prove herself once again. She had to take it. The next morning, Maya arrived at the hotel just as the sun was rising, casting a soft golden glow across the streets. The lobby was still quiet, the bustle of the day yet to begin. She made her way to the staff entrance, her heart racing. Veronica was already there, standing by the elevator. "Maya," she greeted her with a smile. "I'm glad you came. Follow me." Maya nodded and fell into step behind her, trying to keep her nerves in check. Veronica led her through the hotel's back halls, past the cleaning supplies, past the storage rooms, until they reached a small conference room. Inside, a few familiar faces from the board meeting were seated around the table, their expressions more subdued than the last time Maya had seen them. They had been the ones who had dismissed her, looked down on her, laughed at her. Now, they weren't laughing. "Maya," Veronica said as they entered, "I want you to meet a few people. They've asked for your help." The room fell silent as Maya walked in. She wasn't sure what was happening, but something told her this was no ordinary meeting. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We've been reviewing some of the contracts for the hotel's new expansion," one of the men at the table said. "Your insight yesterday was invaluable, and we've realized we might need someone with a stronger understanding of the legal and financial implications. Someone like you." Maya blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Was he offering her a job? Not just any job, but one that could pull her out of the shadows for good. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said cautiously. "We want you to help us fix the mistakes we've made," Veronica interjected, her voice steady. "We believe you have the skills to help us navigate the contract. You've already proven that you can do more than clean floors." Maya's chest tightened. This was happening. They were offering her a seat at the table. The table where decisions were made. The table where people like Veronica and the others sat, people who shaped the future of the hotel. For the first time in her life, Maya felt a surge of hope. She wasn't just an outsider looking in. She was being invited in. The meeting continued, and Maya found herself speaking with a confidence she hadn't known she had. She explained the nuances of the contract, pointed out areas that could lead to disastrous consequences for the hotel, and offered solutions that were both practical and fair. The executives listened, nodding along as she spoke. They were no longer dismissing her. They were respecting her. When the meeting finally ended, Maya was given a stack of contracts and a promise that her work would be compensated. She left the room, her head spinning with the possibilities that now lay before her. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a professional. She was someone to be taken seriously. As she walked down the hall, she couldn't help but smile to herself. This was just the beginning. The following week was a blur of meetings, contracts, and endless emails. Maya's life had changed in ways she hadn't thought possible. She was no longer just the maid cleaning floors and wiping windows. She was now part of the decision-making process. The executives had begun seeking her input on more projects, and every day she spent in the hotel felt like a new step forward. She sat in conference rooms with the same people who had once ignored her, discussing strategies, pointing out flaws in their plans, and offering solutions that made them look at her with a new sense of respect. It was exhilarating. But it wasn't just the work that was changing. Maya felt a shift inside herself, a confidence that had been hidden beneath years of silence. She was no longer hesitant to speak up. She didn't second-guess herself in meetings. She knew her worth now. One morning, as Maya entered the break room to grab a quick cup of coffee, she found Veronica waiting for her. The taller woman was leaning against the counter, a serious look on her face. "Maya, I've been meaning to talk to you," Veronica said as Maya stepped closer. "I've been impressed with how you've handled things. You've got an eye for detail, and you're not afraid to take charge. I think it's time for you to move up." Maya froze for a moment. Move up? She wasn't sure what Veronica meant, but she couldn't help the excitement that bubbled up inside her. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. Veronica's expression softened slightly. "I've been in talks with the higher-ups, and they've agreed. I'm offering you a position, higher up than just a financial consultant. It's yours if you want it." Maya's heart raced as she processed the words. A position higher than financial consultant? Was she being offered a permanent role in the company? Veronica smiled at Maya's wide-eyed expression. "It's a management role. You'll oversee the contracts and negotiations for the hotel's new expansions. You'll be making the decisions that could change the direction of this place." Maya couldn't believe it. A management role? She had only been a part of the hotel for a few weeks, but in that time, she had proven herself capable, and now, it seemed like everything she had worked for was coming together. She felt her breath catch in her throat. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Veronica chuckled softly. "Say yes. This is your chance, Maya. You deserve it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Maya stood there for a moment, her thoughts racing. This was everything she had ever wanted, but it felt like a dream. She had gone from cleaning floors to being offered a seat at the table, a seat where decisions were made, and the future of the hotel was shaped. She looked up at Veronica, who was watching her closely, waiting for her answer. "Yes," Maya said finally, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Yes, I'll take the position." Veronica's smile widened. "Good. I knew you'd make the right choice." As Veronica left the break room, Maya stood there, stunned. This was more than just a job. It was a new beginning. The future she had always dreamed of was within her reach, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. Maya had fought for this moment, and now that it was here, she was ready to take it on. No more hiding in the shadows. She was going to make sure that everyone who had ever doubted her would know exactly who she was. She was a force to be reckoned with. The first day in her new position was nothing like Maya had imagined. Walking into the office on the top floor of the hotel, she felt a rush of excitement and nervousness. The entire floor was sleek, modern, and polished, far removed from the hallways she used to scrub every night. Maya stepped into the glass-walled conference room, where a large table was already set with a few of the hotel's top executives. Her hands were steady, but her heart was pounding in her chest. As she took a seat at the head of the table, a sense of power began to settle over her. For the first time, she was in control. The conversation quickly turned to the hotel's expansion project, and Maya felt her pulse quicken as she began to present the new proposal she had been working on. She had pored over every detail, every contract, and every legal term. She knew this project inside and out, and she was ready to prove it. "We need to renegotiate the terms with the contractors," she said, her voice firm but calm. "The initial offer isn't in our best interest, and we risk overspending if we don't make adjustments." The room was silent for a moment, the executives exchanging glances. Then, one of them spoke up. "You're sure about this, Maya? We're talking about millions of dollars here." Maya nodded, her eyes unwavering. "I'm sure. I've done the math. I've reviewed the contracts, and I know where we can cut costs without sacrificing quality." The tension in the room was palpable as the executives absorbed her words. It was one thing for her to give opinions, but it was another for her to take the lead on a project of this magnitude. And yet, they were listening. She could feel the weight of their attention, and she knew this was her moment. The meeting continued for hours as Maya led the discussion, presenting her ideas with precision and confidence. She answered every question, countered every objection, and eventually, the executives began nodding in agreement. By the end of the meeting, the changes Maya had suggested were approved. She had done it. She had not only earned their respect, but she had also proved to herself that she was capable of so much more than she had ever imagined. As she walked out of the conference room, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. This was only the beginning. Maya had climbed the ladder, but she wasn't stopping here. She was ready for whatever came next. No longer the maid, no longer the invisible one, she was now a key player in the hotel's future. And she wasn't going to let anyone forget it. The days following her successful presentation felt like a whirlwind. Maya's new role had brought her a level of responsibility she had never anticipated, and with it came a wave of respect from those who once overlooked her. But as she sat at her desk, reviewing contracts and preparing for upcoming meetings, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Despite the recognition, despite the newfound power, she still felt like an outsider in the world of high-powered executives. She had earned her place at the table, but it was hard to ignore the subtle glances, the raised eyebrows, and the whispered conversations when she wasn't in the room. Maya knew she had to prove herself even more. She had done well, yes, but there was still work to be done. She was no longer just the maid in the background. She was a professional, but that didn't mean everyone saw her that way. That afternoon, as she was wrapping up a meeting with the legal team, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Veronica. "Maya, I need you in my office. Urgent." Maya's stomach tightened. She had been in and out of Veronica's office several times before, but there was something about this message that felt different. With a deep breath, Maya made her way to Veronica's office. When she arrived, Veronica was standing by the window, staring out over the city. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a certain tension in the air. "Maya," Veronica said, turning to face her. "I need to talk to you about something important." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of unease wash over her. "What's going on?" she asked. Veronica hesitated for a moment before speaking. "The expansion project you've been working on, it's been getting some attention from the board. Some of them aren't as happy with the direction it's going. They feel it's too risky. They want to delay the project until further review." Maya's heart sank. She had worked so hard on this project, and now it seemed like it was all falling apart. "But I've done the research," Maya said, her voice steady. "I've looked at the numbers, and I know this is the right move. It's the best thing for the hotel's future." Veronica nodded, but her expression remained serious. "I know. And I believe in what you've done. But there's pressure from higher up. We need to make sure we're on the same page as the board, or this could jeopardize everything we've worked for." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. This wasn't just a setback, it was a test. A test of her ability to navigate the complexities of the hotel's politics. "What do you need me to do?" Maya asked, her voice resolute. Veronica looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing her words carefully. "I need you to go to the board. Present your case again. Show them why this project is worth the risk. They need to hear it from you." Maya nodded. This was it. This was her chance to prove, once and for all, that she belonged in this world. She wasn't just the maid anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. Later that day, Maya stood in front of the board, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was filled with the most powerful people in the hotel's network, all of them staring at her with varying degrees of skepticism. She could feel their eyes on her, but she refused to let it shake her. She had a job to do. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya began, her voice steady, "I know you have concerns about the expansion project. But I'm here to tell you that this is the right move for this hotel. The numbers don't lie. We're in a position to take this step, and if we don't, we risk falling behind our competitors." As Maya spoke, she could see the board members slowly start to shift in their seats, their skepticism beginning to fade. She knew her arguments were solid, but it wasn't just the data that would convince them, it was her confidence. Her belief in the project, in herself. By the time she finished her presentation, there was a noticeable change in the room. The board members were no longer questioning her. They were listening. When she finished, there was a brief silence, and then one of the board members, a tall man with graying hair, spoke up. "I think we've heard enough. I'm convinced. Let's move forward with the expansion." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her as the room erupted in murmurs of approval. She had done it. She had won them over. As she left the boardroom, a sense of pride and accomplishment filled her. This wasn't just about the project. It was about proving to herself, and to everyone else, that she belonged here. Maya Williams was no longer invisible. She had earned her place, and no one could take that away from her. The weeks that followed felt like a blur for Maya. The expansion project she had fought so hard to get approved was moving forward, and she had quickly settled into her new role. She was no longer just the maid who cleaned rooms and washed dishes. She was an integral part of the hotel's success. But even as things seemed to be falling into place, Maya knew there were still challenges ahead. The higher-ups in the hotel had started to take notice of her abilities, and with that came more responsibility. She found herself working late into the night, reviewing contracts, attending meetings, and making decisions that affected the future of the hotel. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, Maya felt more alive than she ever had before. She wasn't just working for a paycheck anymore, she was building something. She was part of something bigger. But as her new role grew, so did the whispers. Some of the other staff members started to look at her differently. There were moments when Maya could feel the eyes of others on her as she walked through the halls of the hotel. They knew who she was now. They knew what she had accomplished. And for some, that made them uncomfortable. Maya tried not to let it bother her. She knew her worth. But even the strongest person can feel the weight of being an outsider. One afternoon, as Maya was walking toward her office, she overheard two of the hotel's managers talking. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but their words cut through the air like a knife. "She doesn't belong here," one of them said, his voice laced with disdain. "She might have convinced the board, but we all know she's just a cleaner at heart. She doesn't know how to handle the big decisions." The other manager laughed, but it wasn't a friendly sound. "We'll see how long it takes for her to mess up." Maya's heart sank. She had heard the whispers before, but hearing them spoken so openly stung. She didn't belong. She had worked so hard to get here, to prove that she was more than just a maid, more than just someone who cleaned rooms. She was a professional. She was capable. She was a leader. But the doubt, the judgment, was still there. The next day, Maya walked into her office with a renewed determination. She couldn't control what others thought of her, but she could control how she responded. She wasn't going to let their words define her. She had worked too hard to let anyone drag her back to where she started. She had already proven her worth to the board, to Veronica, and to herself. She wasn't going to let a few narrow-minded people stop her now. With that thought in mind, Maya dove back into her work. She reviewed contracts with a laser focus, drafted new proposals, and met with the team to discuss the next phase of the expansion project. She knew there would always be people who doubted her, but she wasn't interested in proving them wrong. She was interested in proving to herself that she was capable of doing anything she set her mind to. The next week, Veronica called her into her office again. This time, there was a different energy in the air. "Maya," Veronica said, her voice filled with admiration, "I've been hearing great things about your work. You've managed the project like a seasoned professional. I'm impressed." Maya smiled, but inside, she felt a surge of pride. She wasn't doing this for the praise, but it was nice to know that someone saw her for who she truly was. "Thank you," Maya replied. "I'm just doing my job." Veronica leaned forward slightly. "You're doing more than that. I think it's time we discuss a permanent position for you. Something at the executive level. Maya's eyes widened. She had known this moment was coming, but hearing it out loud made it all feel real. I don't know what to say, Maya said, her voice a little shaky with emotion. Say yes, Veronica said with a warm smile. You've earned it. Maya didn't need to think twice. She had earned it. Yes, she said, her voice steady. Yes, I'll take the position. As she left Veronica's office, Maya felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. She had come a long way from the woman who used to scrub floors in the hotel's hallways. She had worked hard for everything she had, and now, she was about to take the next big step in her career. No more whispers, no more doubt. Maya Williams was here to stay. Maya sat at her desk, staring out the window as the city skyline stretched out before her. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the buildings. She couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. It felt surreal to think that just months ago, she had been scrubbing floors, trying to stay out of the way of the hotel's wealthy clientele. Now, she was a key player in the hotel's future, a decision-maker, someone who could no longer be ignored. The reality of her new position still felt like a dream. Her role as a financial consultant had grown into something much bigger. She was now overseeing entire projects, making decisions that would affect the direction of the hotel, and her opinion was sought after in every major meeting. The respect she had earned from her colleagues was tangible. There were still a few who doubted her, who whispered behind her back, but she no longer cared. She had learned to ignore the negativity, to focus on her work and the path she had chosen. But despite her growing confidence, there were moments when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. It wasn't just about making the right decisions anymore, it was about proving that she deserved to be in this position. It was about showing that she wasn't just the maid who had somehow slipped into the world of the powerful, but a professional who could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. One morning, as she was preparing for another meeting, Maya received a call from Veronica. Maya, we need to talk, Veronica said, her voice serious. Maya's stomach twisted with a mix of anticipation and concern. She had grown used to these calls, but something in Veronica's tone made her pause. What's going on? Maya asked. We've been discussing the future of the expansion project, Veronica replied. There's a new development, and we need your input. Maya's mind raced. She had worked tirelessly on the expansion project, and any change to it would be a huge deal. I'll be there in 10 minutes, Maya said, her voice steady, despite the nerves bubbling inside her. When Maya arrived at Veronica's office, she was surprised to find not just Veronica, but several of the hotel's top executives seated around the table. They all looked up as she entered, and for the first time, Maya felt a wave of recognition from each one of them. She had earned their respect, and it was in the way they regarded her now. Maya, Veronica said, motioning for her to sit. We've been reviewing the expansion, and there's a new investor interested in joining the project. They want to renegotiate some of the terms, but we're not sure if we should move forward with them. Maya nodded, taking a seat at the table. She had become accustomed to these kinds of conversations, but this one felt different. The stakes were higher. The project she had worked so hard to push forward could change if they brought on a new investor. I need to see the details, Maya said, her voice calm but commanding. I need to know exactly what the terms are and what the risks are. This is too important to rush into without understanding the full picture. Veronica slid a folder across the table toward Maya, and she immediately began flipping through the pages. The terms were complex, but nothing she couldn't handle. She had grown used to navigating the world of high-stakes business, and now it felt second nature. As she read through the documents, she could feel the eyes of the executives on her, waiting for her analysis. She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts before speaking. The proposed terms aren't in our best interest, Maya said, looking up from the documents. This new investor wants too much control without offering enough return on the investment. If we move forward with this, we risk losing the integrity of the project. The room went quiet. The executives exchanged glances, clearly impressed with Maya's assessment. She could see the respect in their eyes now. She wasn't just a woman who had worked her way up from nothing, she was someone who knew exactly what she was doing, someone who could lead them to success. I think we should hold off on this, Maya continued. We don't need to rush into this deal. There are other investors who would be more aligned with our vision. The room remained silent for a moment longer before one of the executives spoke up. Maya, you're right, he said. We need to be cautious. Let's hold off on the deal for now. Maya's heart swelled with pride. This was what she had worked for, and now, she had the power to make decisions that would shape the future of the hotel. As the meeting concluded, Maya stood up, feeling the weight of her responsibility settling in. She wasn't just a part of this company anymore. She was the one who was steering it forward. The respect she had earned wasn't just a passing thing, it was permanent. Maya was no longer just a survivor. She was a leader. Maya sat in the corner of her office, the soft hum of the city drifting through the open window. The day had come to an end, the golden light of the setting sun spilling across the desk, casting long shadows that slowly retreated as the light faded. Her fingers traced the edges of the contracts she had just signed, the paper smooth beneath her touch. Outside, the streetlights flickered to life, one by one, like small beacons in the gathering twilight. The office was quiet now, save for the occasional rustle of papers and the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway. She could hear the faint buzz of voices from down the corridor, but here, in this small room, there was nothing but silence. The kind of silence that settled deep inside, filling every corner, holding every thought and every breath. Maya leaned back in her chair, her eyes fixed on the window, watching the city breathe. The weight of the day, the weight of her journey, seemed to lift just a little. The battles had been fought, the hard decisions made. She had proven herself, not only to those who had doubted her, but to herself as well. And now, in this quiet moment, there was nothing left to prove. Her chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths, her body relaxing into the comfort of the stillness. The glow of the city outside seemed to blur, the lights softening, casting a warm hue over everything. It was almost as if the world itself was taking a deep breath alongside her, pausing for just a moment. The small movements of her hands, the way her fingers grazed the surface of the desk, felt like the only connection left between her and the world outside. Everything else faded, the noise, the expectations, the doubts, until there was only this quiet, this peace. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, letting the stillness wash over her. She could feel the cool air from the window against her skin, the gentle breeze brushing her face, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. The tension in her shoulders, the weight she had been carrying for so long, seemed to melt away. It was as if the world had paused for her, allowing her this space, this brief respite. When she opened her eyes again, the office was dim, the light from the window no longer casting its warm glow but replaced by the cool, steady light of the desk lamp. The city outside was now a silhouette, the shapes of buildings and cars blurred in the dark. Maya sat there for a long moment, the silence stretching out around her. There was no need for words, no need for movement. Everything she had worked for, everything she had fought for, had led her to this point. And in this moment, she was content. She wasn't thinking about the next step, the next meeting, or the next challenge. She was simply present, simply breathing, simply being. The sound of footsteps approached her door, but Maya didn't move. She stayed in her chair, still, breathing slowly. The knock came, soft, polite, but she remained unmoving. The door creaked open, and Veronica's voice came from the threshold. "Maya?" she asked, her voice tentative. Maya took a slow breath, letting the moment linger. She didn't need to answer. The silence spoke for her. Veronica paused, perhaps sensing the weight of the moment. There was no need for words here, no need for explanations. Veronica's footsteps retreated, the door closed gently behind her, and the silence returned. Maya sat there, alone, her breath deep and steady. The quiet was more than just the absence of sound, it was a reflection of everything she had achieved, everything she had overcome. And in this silence, Maya knew she had finally found her place.